What's up, everybody? Welcome to More Theory Unlocked. We're back again with another guest. This is Anton from Skyward Entertainment. We're here to talk about their upcoming game, the studio, and what's going on over there. As always, I'm Drew. Joining alongside me, as always, as well, is that good old guy, Michael Fisher. Michael, what's up, buddy?
I'm excited, Drew. I'm excited to hear what Anton's got to say. I was looking a little bit about his game before we started on Steam, and he's got me interested, so now I got to know more.
Well, so I was hit up by Miko, actually, who is the head of the studio, and it's like, Drew, would you like to take a look and learn some more about our game? I said, okay, well, kind of gave me the pitch of it, and I'm not going to spoil it. I'll let Anton do it. That's what he's here for. So, but then from there, I was like, man, I got to learn more. So, Anton, why don't you give us a bit of a rundown of the studio and what you guys are working on here with Second Stone?
Yeah, hi everyone, and thanks for having me. I mean, this is my first interview of this sort, so super nervous here, but I hope it'll go fine. Yeah, so we've been working on Second Stone for over 4 years now. Hopefully, we'll be able to release it this year, depending on really how things go. We're all the big pieces are in place, and we're just kind of polishing and making sure that it really is as good as it can possibly be. So I don't know really even where to start with the story. It feels like this game has been kind of coming for decades already. We grew up, all of us grew up like in the 90s playing video games on PS1, and games like Alundra, Crash Bandicoot, Link to the Past, Jak and Daxter 1, and stuff like that are like really inspirational to us. And Second Stone is kind of like us trying to just bring back those. Well, I almost hate to use the word vibes because it's so overused, but there's just a kind of feeling that we used to have when playing video games, and just that feeling of rushing home from school and then talking about the games you played the next morning at school, and I don't know if that's something we can accomplish with being adults now, but still trying to bring back a lot of those kind of design things that nowadays seem kind of rare. So Second Stone is an action RPG, but for us it's always been mostly trying to find this kind of healthy mix between action and RPG and 3D platforming. So I like to describe it as kind of, if you could imagine Jak and Daxter 1's kind of movement, traversal, and kind of world feel, but then with almost like Path of Exile level combat, and my kind of portmanteau for that is Path of Daxter. I don't know if that works, but maybe that explains it a little bit. The thing is, like, we didn't really set out to make an action RPG per se. It was just that this was a kind of game that we thought, why hasn't nobody made this specifically? And then we just started adding a bunch of stuff, and when we took a step back and added it to Steam, we were kind of forced to pick a genre, and then we were like, well, maybe action RPG is the best way to put it, mainly because, like, even though we see the 3D platforming as being just as important of a part in the game as the action RPG part, if we say 3D platformer with action RPG, it just sounds doesn't really make any sense, difficult to kind of imagine. But then if we say action RPG with 3D platforming stuff, then that for some reason feels a lot more sense making in a way. So the way I kind of try to explain it usually is that, like, if you think about a classic or typical ARPG like Path of Exile and Diablo, or even Titan Quest or whatever, they're like these isometric viewpoint games that you could almost say that the third dimension is like almost cosmetic in a way. It doesn't really do anything. The game could technically be in 2D and it would be the same kind of mechanics and it would function essentially the same. And even the traversal is more or less something that just almost like a necessary evil. At least when I play those games, I don't really enjoy moving from point A to point B, but I do need to go to the town and back. But with Second Stone, we really wanted to make the 3D platforming, let the 3D platforming parts make that feel like a really kind of important and central part of the gameplay as well. So with that, like, third dimension is really present in all the combat as well. So you can jump up on enemies and bounce on them to stun them. You can climb up on ledges and smash down with a magic attack. And I don't know. Then, like, even the progression systems in Second Stone are built in a way where the exploration and platforming elements and kind of solving puzzles, finding secrets grow your character to be stronger. So all of these systems kind of feed into each other as opposed to just being a kind of guided tour through your that will takes you from set piece to set piece. And I want to be clear, I'm not like trying to talk down on any other games. I love Path of Exile and Diablo and stuff like that. It's just like I don't know, we just tried to do it like this and wondered like why nobody has done it. And honestly, like I think it's already a pretty good game. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but yeah, it's super fun and just we've been putting a lot of work into making sure that that the fun aspect of it is really important and that you really feel like you're going on an adventure and become curious. And there's a lot of stuff in the game that I think really feed into that well.
So I was. Go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
Drew. Go ahead.
No.
Right.
You go, dude. I played the game, so I've got other questions.
Because what piqued my interest when I was looking at this, Anton, is the title Second Stone. It almost implies there's a first stone, right? So how did you come to this title that almost kind of alludes to it's a sequel when it's not really a sequel?
Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but yes, you're right. There is also a first stone, although, there are two stones. And then, there's something about the second one that's central to the story. Maybe I'll leave it at that. But it's just, we thought that, it kind of, the thing is, we have had discussions about the name, honestly. It's just that this felt like a name that, works. It doesn't really say much. But then again, we also really wanted to avoid having one of those really typical generic names like some, Tales of Winds of Eternia is like one of our, joke names that we use as a type of name that we necessarily don't want because that's also like a modern, thing in that sense. And Second Stone is like alluding to, a valuable well, I'll just say that there's like a Dusk Stone and a Dawn Stone, and one of them, I don't know if it's the first or the second one, there's something mysterious going on with it. So yeah, so it's alluding to the story, of course, but at the same time, it's just kind of supposed to be a name that stands out and looks good visually as well.
So the full title is Second Stone: The Legend of the Hidden World.
Right. Well, actually, we just made the decision a month ago to drop the undertitle, so it's just Second Stone now.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, the Legend of the Hidden World also alludes to some of the story and the gameplay elements. So yeah, it's all designed to be like, hey, what is this thing? But yeah, so the Legend of the Hidden World, like, I think it actually works pretty well as a kind of, it piques your interest in a way. But at the same time, whenever I saw it written or we saw it written anywhere, it's just like this word monster that you have to kind of get through, and then every time people said it in some we had it in a showcase and it doesn't exactly roll off your tongue, while Second Stone kind of does. So we were just like, let's just have it called Second Stone.
No, absolutely. So I was able to get hands on it with the game and get an early look at it and jump into the world and the environments and the platforming and the combat and kind of get a grounded feel of where you guys are heading. And I was instantly taken aback when you talk about the Jak and Daxter days, right? Because I'm a huge Jak and Daxter fan. So when Miko and I were talking and we're reminiscing about the nostalgic days of past where we just don't have those kind of feelings anymore, right? In that sense, we have Mario, and Mario's never going to go anywhere, but that's just a different kind of platformer, I feel, compared to where you guys are taking that direction. How did you kind of hone in on that? Is it just pulling from nostalgia, or was there something more to it?
You could say that. I mean, it's kind of a complicated thing. Miko is the real artist there. He is responsible for all the visuals in the game, or at least the art direction. And I can't really speak much on that. But,
sure.
I think it's pretty clear where all the inspirations are coming when you look at games like Crash Bandicoot and Jak and Daxter. That's kind of like the vibe that used to be almost ubiquitous in games in the 90s. This kind of, I don't like Saturday morning cartoons have also, like, we're millennial guys. So those are also have heavily influenced us, but I would just say that it's also like this kind of answer. We want to kind of answer the question, or not answer the question, but like, what happened to those games that kind of, I don't know how to call it, like this family/young teen type of game that almost every game was like that until, I want to say, 04, 05. Something happened when GTA 3 came out and
Yeah.
Halo came out, and suddenly we have like all these kind of much more mature themed games. And once again, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that like why are games nowadays almost completely kids games, or then it's like murder mystery in a haunted, like with decay and stuff like that. But then again, there's also like a bunch of different influences in Second Stone that are from uh, types of games or series that theme-wise aren't influences that we kind of almost try to avoid mentioning. Like I was just actually playing Demon Souls here before this interview, just because I saw that the remastered version for PS5 was on sale in our local video game store. So I was like, hey, I haven't played this for over a decade now, and there's a lot in that game that like about that sense of adventure that we've tried to recreate. But then if we say that, oh, we're inspired by the Souls games, then people would be like, oh, where are the swamps and where's the decay? And we're like, well, that's not the vibe we're going for. Now I'm going off a bit on a tangent here, so
That's fine.
I don't know if that answers the question at all.
Yeah, it does. No, for sure.
You were talking about, there's platforming, there's puzzling. How do you balance that, right? So that maybe someone who's really good at it still feels like it's a challenge for someone who maybe has less time, doesn't have to put 30 minutes into solving a puzzle. Like, how do you balance puzzle-based gameplay to not feel like it's either too hand-holding or, to use too Souls-like of a puzzle where you just keep failing over and over and over again?
Well, I think we just try to feel it out in a way. Like it's really difficult to kind of. I've noticed that there's a lot of things that we've actually been sharing the game with some people just to get some feedback on that, and that's actually a really important part of it. So there are some things that we find really obvious, but then the feedback we got was, oh, this boss fight, he has too much HP, and then when we watch them play, it's like, oh, they didn't understand this mechanic that we're trying to kind of push in this fight, which just tells us, oh, we need to be clear about what's the intention there. And with the puzzles, I think, we try not to make it too difficult because it's more about kind of the fun aspect if you think about Zelda games, the puzzles are never really that hard. It's just about going to the right place and kind of looking in the right spot for that clue. So it's more about kind of like the adventure sense than the kind of puzzling itself. I wouldn't describe it as the Second Stone as a puzzle game in any way. But yeah, just feeling it out and trying it out and getting feedback from people.
Yeah, that's fair. That works. Like I gave the team my feedback and a couple of things here and there. And it was a different approach because often we'll just get an early look at the game, we'll cover it for a preview, and then kind of move on, and then maybe get the review and kind of do that. And that's normally our angle here. So that was a bit of a unique spin from you guys just to reach out, go, hey, we're just looking for feedback. I'm like, man, all right, cool. Yeah, so it was fun though. Like I had a good time. I found it interesting the complexity when you get into the skills and you're fusing your stones and stuff like that. But before we get to that part, can you give people a rundown on the actual main character and what his motivation is?
Yeah, so the main character is called Sheeran. He's a treasure hunter from the village of Arimaya. So in the world of Second Stone, all the people in the world have like a spirit guardian, which you can see actually when you talk to the NPCs. There's usually like this kind of, I don't know how to call it, like a ghostly figure, like this silhouette almost, like close to them, that's supposed to be kind of their spirit guardian. Well, everyone has one except Sheeran. He was bound as an orphan in the forest by the village elder, and he's always been on a quest to find his spirit elder. And some of the kids actually even bully him for having a guardian spirit, or a spirit guardian. I don't remember what the terminology is right now, but yeah. So then he sets out on a mission or on an adventure to kind of find that, looking for clues, and then he stumbles upon something that kind of sets the story in motion, which starts giving him these visions of this other world, like kind of a peek behind the curtain, and yeah, and I don't know, yeah, well that's his motivation, and he's a silent protagonist, so in many ways he is also intended just to be kind of your kind of vessel of exploring this world. Like our composer Alex Mukala, he actually put it really nicely. That we feel like the world is one of the kind of main characters in the game. That it's really a lot about kind of exploring the world and finding stuff out, and we try to make it not like very dialogue heavy or very you know. There's not a lot of exposition, and we really kind of subscribe to the thinking that it's almost more fun to kind of allude to stuff and then have the player kind of piece things together themselves. So Sheeran is kind of a vessel for that, and the thing is, like, the feedback we've gotten so far is that Sheeran is probably the least interesting part of the game, and we're actually currently working on updating his look a little bit so that he looks a little bit more distinct and has a little bit more kind of defining features, at least in his look. And but yeah.
I'm curious to see what the final look is, because after playing it myself, I was like, okay, I can get in with what's going on here. I like the story that led into where we're heading next. Can you talk at all about the hidden world?
Yeah, well, I'll talk about the mechanics of it. I don't want to spoil anything like for that. So there's every level in Second Stone exists both in the normal or light world and then this dark, twisted mirror realm called the Shrouded World. It's basically like any dark world like you would have in a Zelda game, but the twist in Second Stone is that it's mirror flipped. Then we also kind of see it as this kind of mode switch. Like in the normal world or light world, you explore, solve puzzles, go on quests, but then the Shrouded World is kind of like this dark, dangerous place where you have this vignette blocking you from seeing properly unless you find a way to light your path. The enemies are super strong and you can't even hit them at first, and even when you find a way to dispel their shroud, they still hit you like a truck, and on top of that you stack decay every second, so you're really on a ticking clock when you're in there, and you kind of need to go get away from there fast, but sometimes it's the only way for you to progress in the game. And then we also have this kind of long-term thinking that we hope that in the I don't know, end game. I don't know if it's the end game of the game or the end game of the development of the game, that the kind of player will have this sensation that if let's say they find like a secret somewhere way up in the corner of a level, and then maybe they'll start thinking, I wonder if there's something in the Shrouded World here. And then it really becomes about kind of making it all the way there and making sure you can, survive that long and more importantly, make it back. So yeah. The thing is, I don't want to really, reveal too much about the thing because it's like kind of like the main driving force of the story. So I don't want to ruin too much. But let's just say that things that the kind of what people understand about the world in the light world isn't necessarily how it seems, and Sheeran will get a kind of glimpse into that and start solving the mystery of what happened to that ancient civilization that has left all these kind of ancient devices behind.
When you're talking about mirroring stuff, and I don't want to make you give away too much, but just from a development side, was there ever something where you built a level in the light world, it all kind of flows, and then you try and mirror it and you're like, this just doesn't work? Is there any kind of instances where trying to mirror your levels ended up causing like more chaos just for making the game?
Well, no, actually, fun thing, and it actually is the opposite. It makes it easier because, like, the idea to mirror it came actually. It's one of the coolest stories in the development, for at least in my opinion. So the idea for that came from Mikko. He was doing some 3D like modeling work, animation work. I don't remember exactly what he was doing at the studio, and then he saw a reflection in the window of somebody playing a build of the game on a big screen, and he didn't recognize the level even though he made the levels himself. So then it kind of clicked. If we make the Shrouded World kind of this mirrored version, then it feels a lot different than it actually is. And honestly, like even myself who plays the game a lot, it's super disorienting in the sense that I have to actively keep thinking about what's the right way to go, because it's just, if you want to go to a specific place, I almost always kind of default to going back when I jump into the dark world, where I should be going even further in that sense. So it adds a lot of kind of depth and exploration to it. And there's actually like a couple people who we shared the game with who have actually streamed the game already, and it's really interesting to see that they haven't. And this is something we may need to kind of adjust a little bit, but the experience that players have had sometimes is that they don't understand where they end up because it looks so different, even though it's just mirror flipped. So they're like, oh, I wonder where I am now, but because it's like mirrored, and then it also has like a completely different color palette, and it's almost like inverted in that sense. So it's so different that they feel lost instantly, even though it's just a mirror flip version where they were just a half a second ago. So yeah.
Cool. Huh. Has there been challenges being in such a small studio? Like, you guys aren't a very big team at all, are you?
Yeah, I mean, of course, challenges. The thing is, we try to make them, strengths in a way. So the main challenge is that we really need to be super efficient and kind of considerate with our time. So it's really interesting because I love kind of game development stories and stuff. So I just watched this video of one of the founders, or I don't remember exactly, of Naughty Dog, explaining kind of the development process for Crash Bandicoot 1 on the PS1. It was one of the early titles, and a lot of the work there was really trying to squeeze out everything they could from the hardware. Whereas nowadays there aren't that many hardware limitations. Really, it's really about squeezing the most you can out of the time you have. So in that sense, it's more about like trying to be super efficient and sustainable in the things that we develop. And like the decisions we make, and then also like the build you played, there's a lot of stuff we still need to polish, and a lot of stuff that we already have on the to-do list, like for instance balancing. There's no point for us to balance anything yet, because what if we swap around the levels tomorrow or in a month, and then we have to balance it again. So
Sure.
so in that sense, like there's a lot of kind of extrapolation in the kind of game feel, and kind of like the one we shared with you, like we kind of had to ask you to kind of imagine how this would be, as opposed to being like directly like how is this, because like a good example is like relics. So there in the game there are these relics that are kind of like your typical accessories that like you would have in almost any RPG. So we just made them exist. We wanted to kind of, so this is one of the systems. There's going to be you're going to be able to find these things in the world. But the placement of them doesn't make much sense. Like we just scattered them. So one of the good example of that is that I think the second relic you find in the demo build is one that boosts your light damage, which is like your holy damage by 30%. And there's not you can't even do holy damage in the build currently. Like it's kind of like a later stage thing. So that's a good example of like things that we obviously don't intend it to be like that in the final product, but like there's no point in starting to kind of tinker with stuff when we're still putting in the big pieces and adding content. So mostly it's about being really considerate and sustainable, and a lot of that comes down to like looking at references, like other games that we like, how they did it, as opposed to like spending weeks or months trying to iterate to kind of come up with exactly like a from scratch idea. We look at some other game that might have done it super well in our opinion, and then we kind of try to think how would this kind of thing work in Second Stone. A good example of that is like we're now working on the tutorial for the game. And we really want to kind of usually show as opposed to telling, and the current build just tells you a lot with like these big text boxes, which is not ideal. So we played Astrobot and checked out how that game, it was like game of the year and everything, and it's like a kids game. So if it's a kids game, then it probably explains things in a way that's pretty easy to understand. So then we just try to kind of see how that philosophy works for Second Stone and go from there. Oftentimes it's just a starting off point, and we just end up doing something different, but it's kind of just like the ideology that we try to look at from other games and just work from references. If somebody does it well, in our opinion, then we try to at least go for that.
Cool.
And I'm curious, and with any game when there's hidden treasures and stuff, obviously your mileage is going to vary, but we just got a game like Crimson Desert that's 150 plus hours. Do you have like an ideal or target hour limit of how much you kind of are hoping people get out of it? 10, 15, whatever? Is that exist in your game? I mean, obviously, again, some people are going to 100% it, some people are just going to beat the story, but is there a range you guys are going for?
Yeah, we've been discussing that somewhere around 15 to 25, 20, something like that, just because we want it to be a game that you can pick up and play, and rather like personally, I think it's a game that would really work well with a new game plus. So that's something that we're also like, well, it's so far in the future that I don't want to say that considering it, but like,
Yeah.
but like stuff like that would be better. And we're also like adults now, and I remember when I heard that a game was like, oh, 150 hours, that sounds great, but I have kids now and everything, so ain't nobody got time for that. I mean, even though Crimson Desert looks great, and we'll probably have to give it a shot one
Yeah.
someday, but honestly, like nowadays, for me at least, like if a game is super long, that almost makes me anxious as opposed to excited how it used to be. So we all want it to be like a reasonable thing, and on top of that as well, with us being such a small team, it would be like, let's say we would have to make it even 40 hours, then that would be really spreading it thin and kind of, I don't want to point any fingers, but that it would probably would probably need to borrow a little bit of inspiration from how Metal Gear Solid 5 did it, with kind of just redoing missions on hard mode or time attack mode, and that's not something that I think we want to do.
Yeah. When you go and you plan out Second Stone, are you looking long term as far as, if we do this story, then let's line ourselves up if we end off this way to get ready for the sequel? Is that something you guys ever consider, or is it, let's just work on this one, we'll get this done, and then we'll see what happens next?
Yeah, we're just it's like we're piloting a aircraft carrier, and we need to back it into the harbor now. So it's not exactly the time to start thinking about the next aircraft carrier, but at the same time, we do think like, what are things that we could maybe, like, what would even a sequel be in that sense? Like, is Dark Souls a sequel to Demon Souls? I don't necessarily think we'll do like a direct sequel to Second Stone. I mean, time will tell. Maybe if people are like, we want to see more of Shiren, then or what happens to Violet, then we might consider it. But our current thinking is that it's more likely to be kind of like this Zelda type thing, where it's like the same kind of tropes, just put in a different spin. But I'm not gonna. And we do have some considerations and thoughts about what could be like a cool next thing for us to do. But we need to make this thing first. And just like with Second Stone, there's a first stone. So with second game, there has to be first game first.
Very true.
And I mean, again, I don't want to make you give any dates. I'm not going to put any pressure on you, but just very roughly, what's the timeline look like for this year for Second Stone, between either early access or more of gameplay teasers? It's like, what does that timeline look like, to the best you're allowed to share with us?
I hope that this year is the key word, but that I don't, like, the thing is, that's all I know, and things could change so much. So, and there's also like, it almost feels like there, like, release date wise, there are no good answers, only bad and worse answers. So it's really like, we don't really know yet, and probably won't have a close idea until like early Q3 about what will end up happening. And then there are also things that we really can't control that much. Like, if we don't have enough, interest and following, then it just isn't a good idea to release it yet. So a lot of things that are out of our control, but we do hope that it would be something that would be released before the end of this year, mainly because we also want to play GTA 6 and not have to worry about developing a game anymore.
Well,
not mainly, but that is an aspect of it. The thing is, like, if Rockstar would be so gracious as to push GTA 6 to next year, that would probably make things a lot easier for us and for a bunch of other people as well. It was funny because I was imagining, like, when they announced the delay from May to mid-November, when they did, I was like imagining all the like frantic panic meetings, all the phones ringing first thing in the morning when that news broke in all the developer studios, like, oh, we were supposed to launch mid-November, what do we do now? Yeah. And we're lucky that we haven't announced anything about around that time yet. But like, yeah, it could be a good time for us, but we'll have to see. It's really difficult to say.
That it seems to be one of the hardest things to pinpoint. We talk to a lot of developers here, and nobody really seems to have a solid answer ever as to when is the best time to drop their game, right? Especially when you have such a juggernaut like GTA 6 dropping later this year.
Right.
It's like, what do? Do you go before it? You get in there, and I think Second Stone has the capabilities to get in there and get in, find your audience before GTA drops. But if you come after, man, you and everybody else would get caught in the wake, right? And that's
Yeah,
one of the
exactly.
biggest concerns. So, yeah.
Yeah, right. And then there's like I don't know. I don't think this is necessarily something that we would do with Second Stone, but you probably know Mega Bonk. It was like a big hit last
Hmm.
September, and
Yeah.
actually I don't know if it was the guy's plan, but in my understanding when I followed that game and its release was that he kind of just released it when he was mid-viral. I don't know. Like I remember seeing it somewhere and not seeing a release date, and then suddenly, oh wow, it's released. So and that probably led to it being such a hit is that he happened to release it. I think it was like the day before Silk Song even or something like that. So it's just like you never know with these things. I just made like I was talking to someone else and I made the comparison. It's like starting to build a house in the middle of a minefield. You just try to pick the spot that seems the least bad and then pray.
Yeah.
But of course there's stuff we can try to you know optimize and stuff with that, but it's really hard.
No, for sure. Can we talk about Skyward for a second? Like, let's talk about the
Sure.
studio itself, because you guys are a new studio, aren't you? Like, Miko came over
Yes.
as an art director from the Oceanhorn series,
Yeah, right.
and then
S-
wants his dream
what
game,
what
and
do you
here
want
you
to
guys
know?
are. Yeah. So, how'd you guys
Yeah.
get started? Where'd you guys all come from? How'd you get involved in this?
Yeah. Where do I start? So basically, me and Miko have been friends since third grade, and
Nice.
actually became friends because of Final Fantasy VII. So the
Mm-hmm.
short version of the story is that he had a magazine with the first ever screenshots of FF8, and I was like, I need to become friends with this person, and that's what happened. And then like me and another friend were just gushing over kind of end game stuff of FF7, and then he became interested in that game, and we've been friends ever since. So fast forward to something around 4 years ago. I don't remember the exact date.
Yeah.
Miko founded, like with one of the other founded the company, and after working on Oceanhorn 2 for Cornfox, uh, yeah, it's difficult to say because I would almost have to chronicle like
Yeah.
decades of story, but and now we're here. Like it's been a crazy journey, and just like getting funded and starting to figure out how the best way to do it and yeah, personally I got involved just over a year ago, 1.5 years ago. Like I have a degree in marketing, so I've been doing stuff all over like different investment banking, telecommunications, cybersecurity. But at the same time, like me and Miko have been talking and gushing over video games for 30 years now. So it's like we live rent free in each other's heads. And sometimes he says that like whenever he's doing some art stuff, like if he thinks I could nitpick about it, then it's not good enough yet. That's high praise to me. Like it's really flattering to hear that
Yeah.
like a game that looks fantastic in my eyes is because like he made it so that I wouldn't complain about it. But and at the same time, I can talk for days, and like we have had so many discussions and we agree on so many things that I have a lot of trust in kind of like being the kind of mouth of Skyward currently, and just as an example, like we just today like talked about the like how we're gonna really hammer home the kind of how you get, I don't know how to put it, like how to sell the kind of curiosity for the story within the tutorial, and it's just like back and forth of shooting out ideas and then loving each other's ideas, and then it goes from there. And I can take much credit. It's just like not good, I think I'm a good sounding board like that, and sometimes we just like sit down and how can we make this more fun? It feels a bit boring. Yeah, okay, let's make it more fun, and then we think about it, and then it becomes more fun. But that's also like from decades of like talking about video games, like when Ni no Kuni came out in
Oh yeah.
I want to say
Wow.
2013, we had
Yep.
like a 7-hour phone call just about how we loved everything about it. It was like I went out for a walk and I called him, and then I noticed it's like 4 a.m. and I was like, oh, I've been walking for 7 hours, and that we almost have to watch out for like having phone calls now because they always end up being like 3.5 hours of just like, and then we should do this, and then we should do this, and then he makes it work because he has like he's the one with all the, well, not all the, but like, well, most of the, at least the kind of knowledge in how to develop and
Sure.
how to kind of make those decisions in a way that are sustainable. Like I'm still a kind of a rookie when it comes to those things, but I've noticed that I'm starting to kind of understand that, oh, these things are really can't be done, and these things would be like a month of work for almost no benefit, and stuff like that. And yeah, so and a lot of these, well, I don't, some of the things in Second Stone, like the systems, are stuff that we already have discussed like a long time ago about, hey, wouldn't that be cool, and why haven't this been done? And I don't want, like, it's just we have we share a brain in many ways. So so in that sense, it's that's how I got involved personally.
That's cool. So you were never actually in video games at all. You just kind of came over because you had a friend within the industry.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
Finland has a pretty big industry in the sense that there's a lot of like I've been game testing a lot, like just hanging around people, and yeah, and I did do like our marketing stuff, like our marketing plan. I helped the studio out like over a year ago. So just as like from an outsider's perspective, because like just as with Second Stone and doing things in a way that we haven't seen it being done, and development wise, and but also business wise, we try to make sure that we are really looking at all the different angles on things and don't just kind of default to doing how things have usually been done, because very often it feels like the games that end up being mega hits are doing things that nobody would have done for some reason. Like a good example of this is like Clair Obscur was like, oh, it's a turn-based game, and turn-based is like, no, nobody wants a turn-based game, and now it was like this smash hit, even though it was turn-based. So sometimes you have to kind of try new stuff, and that's why it's like even without like the thing is, I've also been like kind of a shoulder for Miko to kind of vent on for such a long time that I've heard all the kind of things that are difficult and stuff. So I wouldn't say that I'm completely like new to the industry in that sense. I've been following closely, and we've been like following development and playing games and like really analyzing stuff for since we were like 10 years old. So in that sense, yeah, new to the industry on that sense. But like then the kind of like the at least the fan side of it or the consumer side of it has been like the only thing that I've been thinking about for since so for most of my life. So I would, yeah.
And I mean, you've been talking about systems. You've been talking about how you've been gaming since a kid. What's your favorite system in Second Stone? Like, what's something that maybe if you could teleport 10-year-old you here and let him play the game, like he would love? Is there like a system that you have or a mechanic in Second Stone that you're super proud of?
Mana Stones, like the main progression system. I would say that like ever since Final Fantasy VIII came out and we were kind of the dust settled and we were kind of old enough to kind of look at it more critically. Like that's one of my favorite games. It was the first FF game that I bought myself when I was 9 years old, and or was I 10? Whatever. So the junctioning system is like my favorite, but at the same time, it's also like I don't want to, complain, but horrible design in the sense that it completely disincentivizes you from using any magic at all. So it's like, because if you use magic, your stats become worse. So then 15 years ago, we were just like, vibing and talking about like how would you fix that? And then we thought that, hey, we love the materia system. So what if you could junction materia? And that's kind of like the primordial goo from which the systems in Second Stone maybe have come. Like I wasn't there for the exact conception of that, but I do see the similarities. So I think that the Mana Stone system is fantastic, honestly. Like just because it's first of all it's so tangible. Like the thing about Second Stone that I like to say that there's no abstract stuff. So even the skill point system in the game is like a device where you put items into. So there's like, if you think about like for instance in Path of Exile, and once again I want to emphasize that I'm in no way criticizing it. I just want to say that like what is happening when you put a talent point or a skill point? What happens? It's just this abstract representation of your character learning something, right? Whereas in Second Stone, all of these things are things that are happening with physical stuff in the game. So the Mana Stones are things you find that you combine and you equip. So it's really tangible. Then the modularity of it is fantastic as well. We really wanted to make sure that that the kind of that experimentation and creativity is like heavily not recommended, but like encouraged. So you can always swap stuff around, and like there are so many situations where I've just by playing around with it myself realized and found these kind of combos that, ooh, I love doing this. And like I'm a melee guy, I always make a melee build in every game. Even now when I was playing demons, I was like, maybe I should try casting this time. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't know why. Just
Yeah.
I like hitting stuff with a sword. So in Second Stone, like there, like because we have the rogue-like temple in the game, which is kind of like a Hades within Second Stone. So because you're kind of naked when you go in there and you kind of start your build from scratch, and your build kind of emerges from the choices that you have to make when you choose your rewards at the end of each room. There are so many things that I've kind of discovered, like synergies that I've found and combos that I've found that way that have then become like the core part of how I like to build my build. So just the fact that it's so fun to tinker around with and like to play around with and try new stuff, that there's and I like to throw out this like number that because we have 8 elements in the game, all of the elements have 2 spells, all of them have 6 different customizations, out of which you can have 3 equipped at the same time. It adds up to there being over 300 different spell variations that you can do in Second Stone. And I honestly like just try new stuff every time, and I always find something that, ooh, I didn't like imagine liking this, but then it's actually quite fun. And now that we actually just reworked kind of the customizations to make them feel more active and lean into kind of the element fantasy or kind of identity better, it's even better. So yeah, I'd say that system is really good. But on top of that as well, like, you know, I think Second Stone is more than the sum of its parts. I'm kind of blown away, and I have to really kind of tip my cap to Miko and everyone who's been building the games until I joined, in how well all these things feed together. It just feels like such a good package all in all, and nothing feels kind of out of place. Yeah, maybe some of the UI, yeah, I mean the UI, the HUD isn't finished, and we're still like polishing stuff. But what really kind of blows me away with the game, just seeing people play it and playing it myself, is just how good everything works together, and it just makes this whole that just kind of makes sense somehow. And it even further, it doesn't answer the question, why hasn't this been done before? It's like, why hasn't this been done before? Because it almost the thing is like, at the same time, the systems are really simple. So if I explain to you like, oh, you find these magical stones, and if you equip them to your weapon, you get like elemental damage for that element, you get damage boost. If you equip it to your armlet, you cast spells of that element, you can customize them. And then if you equip it to your armor, you get passive stats. That sounds super simple, right? But then the amount of depth there actually is with that simplicity is like really impressive to me. And I don't want to say impressive because I work on the game, but like it's just, I'm so surprised by it. And even like and the fact that you find progression for your character by exploring and platforming and doing all that stuff, it's just, there's no part of the game that is the worst part, because it feels like the game is this one big thing as opposed to a collection of different systems and parts. And I don't know, I suppose all developers think about like that about their game. but yeah, so, and like I said, I'm the most, you know, complainy guy. I find something to bitch about in almost anything I play, and you know, there are not many things in Second Stone that I honestly think that this is pointless or bad or something like that. Well, there are a couple of small things that we added that we just discussed today that we might phase those out because like we don't want to onboard people into this thing because we'll only be using it a couple of times, and yeah, so we just threw a lot of stuff into the game, and now we might remove 1 or 2 small things because it doesn't make sense to have it everywhere. So why have it anywhere then? But yeah, I don't know. That probably is a cop-out answer to your question. Like, oh, it's all of them. But you know,
I found the game was easy to get into,
right.
But there's a skill level to actually master, and I think that's kind of one of the directions you were making light of, right? It was that you can get in there, you can mash your buttons away, and you can kill out the enemies. Like I was fighting some lizard creature, and then I'm bouncing off this like blob-like thing to get to the next platform, and then continuing on. But then as I went in and started honing in on all my stones and fusing things together, I'm leveling this up, and all of a sudden now I've got this lightning effect that's taken place into my armlet. And I was just like, man, there's so many different things as I was experiencing that, there's 300 some odd combos, but there's also all the other gear that you get to kind of bring along with you. Can you kind of discuss some of the items that we'll be using to take out these guys?
Well, yeah, mainly it's just the weapons I think you're alluding to. So there are 4 different weapons in the game, and we there's like daggers, long sword, or your basic like typical sword, then there's a really big sword, and then there's also a bow. And the idea with that is that we just want to encourage different play styles, and just make sure that everyone can find something. So if you're like a mage guy who always want to make like a frost mage, then maybe the bow is for you. Or if you're like a melee guy, then maybe you want to have a daggers, and then there are also the different builds. Like it's I want to kind of go back to my previous answer that I find it very difficult to kind of answer questions about any specific thing, particularly because I feel like everything kind of feeds into each other. So if I talk about the daggers, I feel really inclined to talk about, oh well, for that, then in the skill tree, there's this one path that really kind of is like about sneakiness and stealth, and about critical hits and kind of backstabbing stuff. And then maybe the daggers is for that. So yeah, I don't even remember the question anymore. I got sidetracked. But yeah, so there are different weapons in the game. Is pretty much what I'm trying to say here. I don't know what if there was something else you were alluding to. Let me know, and I'll try to talk myself out of the question as well.
Yeah, no, it's that's why I said, there's just a lot of fusion going on to then level things up and get to, because I went in one direction, then I found myself, like you said, sneaking around. I think I believe I turned myself invisible at one point.
Yeah, exactly.
So, right, like it is very customizable to fit your own playstyle, or even jump mid playstyle if you want to change things up as well. I mean, I thought it was cool. I thought it was fun. You guys are using Unreal Engine 5. How's that going? Because everybody feels Unreal Engine 5 games they're all the same. And I don't feel that yours is the same. You guys are standing out a little bit differently.
Yeah, I find that to be a really interesting discussion. It's like sometimes when we share that we use Unreal Engine 5, it's like, ooh, how's the performance? It's like, well, I mean, it's fine. It's not like super hyper realistic or anything. It's like it's like almost like people have this. I like using this metaphor that it's almost like, oh, you bought a BMW, it can only drive above the speed limit. It's like, no, you can drive below the speed limit as well if you want. It's really about what you do with it. And there are games on the original Switch that are being that use UE5 that run without issue, and people don't even understand that it's Unreal Engine 5. I think the fact is really that Unreal Engine 5 is such a good engine that is really, well, I don't want to say easy, but it's proportionally easy to make really good looking stuff, and then optimizing things is generally really difficult. So, if you can do something really beautiful and really nice looking, then why not do that? And then that maybe feeds into the stereotype of Unreal Engine 5 games being kind of like laggy and stuff like that. But generally, I don't, I don't work much in the engine, but the fact that I can do stuff, and I can add stuff. I made some NPCs for the game. We haven't put them in yet, but that was kind of like the stuff I kind of practiced the engine with. We're going to be adding like, what do you call it? These volumes that we added ledge grabbing into the game, and now we need to like make sure that some of the more of the ledges are grabbable. So that's something that probably I will be take part in, just like adding these things. And so we couldn't be doing the stuff that we're doing without Unreal Engine 5. It's just a question of like, what you want to do with it. It's almost like limitless in that sense, and that's why I think the perception is that, oh, it's a kind of difficult engine, because if you can do limitless stuff, then you might fly a bit too close to the sun, but that's not something that is, I think, almost relevant for a second stone. But the fact is that some people do comment that oh yeah, it's Unreal Engine 5. All these Unreal Engine 5 games look the same, and I'm like, I have no earthly idea what those people are talking about. With other games, I might have an idea, and I understand where they're coming from, but not with Second Stone. And nobody has ever yet been able to kind of explain to me what they're referring to. Maybe it's some sort of processing or some sort of kind of, you know, filter or no, not filter, but like maybe there's something in the game that just like it looks like Unreal Engine 5 because it looks good. It's a great looking game. So, oh yeah, you know, Unreal Engine 5, only making good looking games. You know, I don't know.
What a
You know, you
problem.
could make Solitaire in Unreal Engine 5, and you know, people wouldn't even know. But then they wouldn't even see it as an Unreal Engine 5 thing. You know,
Sure.
so I don't know. It's a difficult question to answer because. Once again, I'm trying to escape the question almost here, but no, but because like it's such a subjective thing as well.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you know, how do you really define looking the same? How do you define good looking? So we just do what we think looks good and what we want to make, and Unreal Engine 5 has been really fantastic for that for us.
Speaking of looking, NVIDIA just revealed this whole DLSS 5
Right. Yeah.
fiasco / whatever else you want to call it. Where do you stand? Because I don't think, Michael, have we talked to anybody yet? I don't think we've talked to anybody yet about it, right? And I'm
No, I don't
curious
think
to
so.
see from the developer side. We've seen a mixed bag over on our side. People are all for it. Other people are like, that thing is horrible. It's a piece of shit. Keep it out of my game. Where do you guys stand? Is this something that you feel is good for the industry? Or is it something, you guys even care?
What do you mean specifically?
Will you use the DLSS 5 mechanic in your? I don't think you'll use it in Second Stone, but like, how do you feel it's where it stands in the industry?
Well, I don't think it would be something that would work really well with Second Stone. It's like such a heavily stylized game, and at least everything I saw with it looks like it just would be for something like really realistic looking. So I don't know where I stand on it, honestly.
Sure.
It's kind of like I feel like we're in a breaking point when it comes to like all these AI tools and stuff. And I understand where where people are coming from. I think, oh yeah, that's the AI face when I saw the screenshot. Oh, so
Right.
they added the AI face to stuff. But the thing is, like, I try to look at it from the perspective of 10 years from now. And really, like, there was this article I read last week about Valve having some, you know, comments about using AI in the game development, and well, the thing is, it was funny just because if it had been anyone else, people would have been like with their pitchforks, but now it's like, oh, Valve, interesting point, you know. But yeah, so I think it's just like. I understand where people are coming from when it comes to kind of using AI in video games, and especially when it kind of makes it look like this thing that stands out in a way that you kind of associate it with negative stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't like the result of the DLSS 5 that I saw, but I just kind of try to look at it that, oh, this could be something that in 10 years' time would allow developers to do something really cool. I wouldn't use that for Second Stone yet, and I think the jury is still out on what the kind of correct amount of AI use is. A lot of people think that it's zero, and like for us at least, we just want to make, like, we have really high like quality standards for ourselves, and we would never want to add any AI slop to our game. So it's more about, you know, that thing than having a principle to not use AI stuff. And the thing is, like, we're such a small team that in a way that I understand also the point that if you are a Square Enix or something and then you're laying off 500 people because you can do the same with AI, then that kind of, I understand where people are coming from when they say that that's a bad thing, and I tend to agree. But then in some situations you have to consider, like, if you're a solo developer or something, then, you know, you will be doing stuff with AI, or then you won't be doing that stuff at all. So there is, you know, there are cases where using AI tools to kind of help you make your game better can work. I don't just think that it's as simple as just writing prompts and, you know, slapping stuff in your game. And almost all of the games that have been kind of called out for using AI or kind of been review bombed by that, when I look at those games, I'm like, oh yeah, that doesn't look great. I don't want to name any names, but at the end of the day, it's interesting in the way that, you know, when everything is about creating this believable and convincing illusion in the first place, then the question I have just theories that what does it matter how the illusion is being done? The thing is that if you do it in a way that is bad, then obviously that's bad. And but for us, like we want to make sure that the game is as good as possible, and so all the models and all the kind of textures are made with Blender and ZBrush and Substance Painter. So I don't think there are many places where we even could use AI to make the game actively better. And at this point, we don't really need to cut any corners either. So we already have all of the work done in that aspect. But of course, like I use AI for some simple productivity stuff like business stuff mainly sometimes, and but that's pretty much it then. But yeah, and so the DLSS 5 thing, I think it's kind of I think it's almost pointless to kind of judge it in its current state. I think that it was maybe not the best decision by NVIDIA to kind of reveal it like this as this kind of cool thing. I think it expresses almost like an out of touchness that they think that this is super cool when it's just like adding a stable diffusion generated phase onto the game. But maybe in like 10-15 years you can have games that have basically limitless conversation options, because you can have like a thing that generates it and actually has it influence things. And that's actually what the Valve article was about as well, that they had, if I remember correctly, it was that they had experimented with letting having an AI model, or I don't know how they implemented it or anything, but just like having NPCs react to surprising things that the player does. And that's something that you wouldn't be able to do without having some sort of, I don't know, LLM or some sort of, model running there that kind of interprets things and makes conclusions. And I know that even saying interprets or makes conclusion is like overstating the capabilities of AI in that sense. It doesn't, they don't understand anything, but that's also like, in one of my previous jobs, somebody was like, oh, so the AI understands this and then it explains this. And I was like, well, it understands this just as much as an elevator understands that you want to go to the 5th floor when you press the button with the 5. It's just like programmed to do that. It doesn't, it's not cognizant. It's not like understanding. It's just like running a really complicated set of functions in a way.
Do you remember when Epic introduced Vader's AI voice? People are getting told off by Vader in Fortnite. Like I feel like that's kind of.
I haven't heard about that.
Oh man, that was hilarious. People are getting told off. Vader, they're mid-match. Vader comes along and just tells them where to go. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey with this whole AI discussion, because it's all over the place, right? And I'm always curious to see where developers land and how they plan to use it. But most of the people we're talking to, they're just staying away from it. Like they really are. So yeah, people are getting caught with used assets from AI, and now they're being replaced. Crimson Desert, I'll call you out. But they're slowly patching that out and phasing that out, right? But I want to talk about funding, because this came up this morning. Polyarc, the team, the VR team behind Moss and Moss 2, just had to lay off employees because of the funding situation, right? They weren't able to get funding for the next project, which is a heartbreaker, because I think that studio is absolutely incredible. Some of the best puzzles I've ever played in VR was because of these guys. Like, they're a very talented team. It sucks to see this, because our industry is constantly on our website over the gamerstheory.com. We're constantly covering another studio layoff, another studio hit with layoffs, another studio hit with layoffs. How do you guys go out and secure funding? How are you able to obtain that for your studio, Anton, to make sure that you guys are able to produce your game and then hopefully sell it to a success that allows you to continue on to the next one?
Well, I wasn't part of that part of the journey that much,
Sure.
but we got an investment that allows us to kind of, we do have to kind of count our money and be, like I said, sustainable with a lot of stuff and really kind of make things count. But we are not, we're not in that situation. It has, like, haven't been that many surprises in that sense, and we haven't gone out. But we are actively like looking for places where we can get a little bit more, bucks to use for bangs. I don't know how to put it. But yeah, so I don't have that much insight to it, except that I know that we're set for for some time, and we don't have to be concerned about that at least. And we're a very small team, like just 5 people full time. So it's more about like when we find some extra dough, we can try to add some extra muscle onto the development and make it better and faster. But yeah.
Cool.
I got just one more here because I'm just trying to hold to it, Anton. You've snuck around some of these, and maybe you'll get out of this one.
Yeah.
And it's super simple though. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna get you in trouble. But you've talked about all the customization, all the weapons.
Right.
When the game, in its current state or when the game launches, what is the Anton build? If there was a recommended follow Anton's path to playing Second Stone, what would it look like?
Melee.
Melee, yeah. But
there's different weapons. I want to, as specific as you can be. If I want to copy what you're doing, I want to know how to build like you're gonna build.
I can be pretty specific, but I have to say it's melee, but at the same time, there's a caveat, but because like in Second Stone, like you get mana back from doing physical attacks, so you would never, or like doing weapon attacks, so you would never have a purely mage build or a purely melee build, or you could have a purely melee build, but you're kind of losing out, you're not using any mana, and that's kind of like you want to be doing that. So, but my favorite combo, and these are subject to change, but currently my favorite combo is having like a water spell as my kind of primary attack, and then having daggers with lightning, and then having my secondary spell being ice. So what I do is I climb up somewhere high, dive down on enemies with a water AoE attack, and if this is assuming they're kind of leveled up a little bit. So I don't remember exactly what level they need to be because we just swapped it out, or moved it around a little bit. So the water thing makes this debuff on enemies that's called soak, or maybe it's called damp now, but it's clear what it does, which makes them susceptible to or they take more lightning damage and more ice damage. Then I dash out of that group. I throw a homing customized ice orb into that pack so that they start kind of slowing down, and then I go in with my lightning daggers and hit them, so then they kind of chain and stun and get frozen, and then when they get frozen they shatter, so then there's just like the whole screen is just like numbers of damage. So that's my go-to. But I know I have found that it doesn't scale really well, so I have to figure out a way to get past that. But then generally, like, there's a lot of stuff I like doing, like I like thunder a lot. I like using thunder attacks, and just because I think that I always like in Final Fantasy games. I always prefer the thunder attacks as well. They feel like the most exotic out of the basic stuff in that sense. So those are one. And actually, we just moved around like there's the magma element, which is like a combination of fire and earth, which the mechanic for that element is berserk, so you get this status where you take more damage and put out more damage. So I like using that with like the big sword and basically being like guts from berserk. That's also really cool. I'm trying to be really concise here, but it's like the thing is, I find new stuff all the time that I really like. So we made a trailer that's gonna come out in a couple of weeks' time. Announcement coming soon, and I recorded like a bunch of video for that to like using that, and I just found a lot of cool things, and like there are so many customizations for the spells that I haven't used all of them. So it, my favorite one is, which is just like if you use the earthquake spell, which shoots the kind of these earth pillars, and you make it into a scatter shot, so it shoots 3 projectiles, and then you also make them split on impact. So then when you hit like enemies, and it becomes this like huge thing that fills the screen with this like immense earthquake, and I think that's really cool. But that's just one spell, so. But yeah, I don't know. Did that answer your question? I tried.
Yeah, no, you clearly answered it. And now I know there's a lot in store, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. What are you yourself, I guess, in the team hoping that players take away from playing Second Stone?
Good question. I just think that I hope people find that it's a game that's really easy to pick up and play and just like have fun in, like almost like if, like it would be like a toy that you can't put down. That there's a lot of stuff you can do. You can play cards with the villagers. You can do a run in the roguelike temple. You can, explore the world and explore the dark world. So I just think that people take out of it that it's has a lot of these things that aren't necessarily that common anymore in game design or game development. That like just one of the things that has surprised me the most is that people really resonate with the fact that you can swim in the game. That's just something that we added because like it's fun to swim and it adds to this sense of freedom and adventure. And it's not like a core feature or anything. It's not like something that's super fleshed out. It's just that you can swim. You can dive a little bit. You can maybe find a treasure chest in a sunken pirate ship or whatever. But just like this game, I don't know. Like I remember from when I grew up this sensation of starting up a game and not knowing what you would end up doing, and just like exploring the world and finding secrets and finding places that don't seem to have any particular purpose. They're just there because it's supposed to feel like a living, breathing thing. So yeah, I hope people will take away from it that it's a fantastic game and it's the best game they've ever played or even heard of. But barring that cop-out answer, I just think that I hope that people will find that it's like a game that reminds them of another time. And there's this thing I like to throw around. Like I had a poster for Raiders of the Lost Ark in my room when I was a teenager, and Raiders of the Lost Ark was really conceived originally by George Lucas as a kind of this homage or love letter to these early 1900s adventure serials, where this manly man fights bad guys, and that's where Raiders came from. And the kind of the tagline for in that poster is Return of the Great Adventure, and we almost used that in the last trailer, in the upcoming trailer, because that's kind of how we see Second Stone as well. As like Indiana Jones is a love letter to 1920s adventure serials, and Second Stone is a love letter to kind of 90s adventure games, and that kind of after like Saturday morning cartoon vibe that was everywhere, and now it's almost nowhere.
Yeah, that's fair. Second Stone's coming to PC, also coming to console on day one, or is that a port coming later?
Hopefully, yeah. We haven't been able to confirm anything yet. I would love to say yes. We do hope so. We're big console guys at Skyward. I would hope to have Second Stone even on the smart fridges of the world, but but like that's not something that we can just decide. It's kind of something that we discuss with the first parties and the platform holders, and yeah. But I mean, it would be awesome. I think like it would be a dream come true being a console gamer mainly, and we'll hopefully have something to announce on that front soon, and ideally yes at the same time for all of them. It's not a porting question. It's a question of something else that's luckily being handled by our publisher, so we don't have to, lose sleep over that.
No, that's fair. That's fair. All right, no official release date. We'll have to just wait and see when we can get our hands on this. Until then, though,
yep.
Anton, thank you so much for joining us. Go check out Second Stone. It's over on Steam right now. Go wishlist the game. You can go do that. Get ready, so that way when it is dropping, we're all set. Until next time, Anton, again, thank you for joining us. I'm Drew. That's Michael.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you at Theory Unlocked next week.